Let's talk about what most likely happened to Al-Assad's army from Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare to Modern Warfare 2. So, yeah, let's get into it. It's only right we start from the very beginning when a military coup was taking place in Saudi Arabia by the Tigers of the Revolution, or Al-Assad's army. We see them taking over while their troops are all over the place, and they transport the president to an arena to execute him on national TV. This all happens due to Yasser al-Fulani, or the Saudi president, collaborating with the West or potentially being corrupt. Al-Assad states all of this in his speech while the Saudi president is being delivered to the arena. It also becomes very apparent that Al-Assad and his army were getting backed by the Russian ultranationalists, which is why they have so much Russian equipment, and Zakayev, the Russian ultranationalist leader, is the one who supplied the nuclear device. But Al-Assad and his army were essentially used by Zakayev to distract the Western forces from the Russian civil war that was going on. But I will say this, Al-Assad and Zakayev both have the same views regarding their country's relations with the West. Soon after the coup takes place in Saudi Arabia, Al-Assad and his army start invading other countries off-screen like Kuwait and Iraq, and well, he already has complete control of Saudi Arabia. This is when the US Marines are dispatched to the Middle East to help stabilize it from Al-Assad's invasions and wars. We see the US forces close in on a local TV station where they assume Al-Assad is because that's where his pre-recorded speech is broadcasting from. But when the Marines get there, they find out it's a pre-recorded message and Al-Assad is not there, and that the military intelligence had gotten it wrong.
After heavy fighting today, US Marines began to push into the city where Al-Assad is making his last stand. Fighting has intensified in the capital city. Anti-aircraft fire and burning buildings light the night.
Roger on location. Repeating, map grid 527619er. Over.
Bravo 6 copies. Over.
Bravo 6, we have an Abrams dead in the water. Call sign, Warpig. Lieutenant Vasquez, your unit is shotgun. Over.
Copy. Bravo is inbound. Tell Warpig to stand by. We're on our way. Out.
After more heavy fighting with Al-Assad's army, the Marines go help out a tank that is stuck in the bog and needs some assistance. And during this mission, we see just how hectic the fighting is, with multiple Marines dying and shots coming from every direction. Once they help out the tank that is stuck in the bog, or Warpig, they continue their push into the city and battle Al-Assad's forces, then they leave and continue the search for Al-Assad. Vasquez and his squad then join the attack on what they thought was Al-Assad's location and fight across the capital. They then rescue a reconnaissance team. This is when the nuclear device is discovered in the city, revealing it was a trap set by Al-Assad and the ultranationalists. And before all US forces could evacuate, the nuclear device is detonated on Makarov's orders, killing all US personnel in the area and much of Al-Assad's army, effectively ending the war. Then in Modern Warfare 2, we see what looks like the remnants of the Tigers of the Revolution, or Al-Assad's army, and they are now based in Afghanistan. This is probably because they had to flee after losing much of their military, their leader, and stopped getting backed by the Russian ultranationalists, which allowed the Middle Eastern militaries to finally fight and repel them. So now they're probably more like an insurgency, just holding out and trying to continue the best they could with new unknown leadership. What best supports this is we see the American army training the Afghanistan army to fight against these guys because they have somewhat of a foothold in Afghanistan apparently. And now that their leader Al-Assad is dead, he became a martyr for his army or believers. This is supported by all the signs we see with his face, showing us that they believe in his cause still. Also, they still use his logo, albeit a little bit different. It's still basically the same. And that's kind of what I think happened to Al-Assad's army. They first took over huge parts of the Middle East, if not most of the Middle East. Then the US military intervenes, and after heavy fighting, both sides take catastrophic losses, ultimately ending up as a victory for the Tigers, but at the cost of their army in the capital city and their leader. Once all that happened, most locations they had taken over or were occupying were able to fight off the Tigers because of the huge amount of losses to their military. Or maybe they could have just retreated and they knew they couldn't hold much of their territory, but seeing how Al-Assad's movement still has a good amount of supporters, it would look like, I doubt they would just retreat because these guys seem like they're basically devoted zealots. To be honest, I don't think they retreated on their own volition because I think the rest of the Middle Eastern militaries were able to defeat what was left of Al-Assad's army, which is why they're in Afghanistan. They most likely all regrouped at an unknown location by an unknown leader or unknown leaders and decided they had to go somewhere else and start out somewhat new to a location that they could hold, being Afghanistan, and rebuild their forces. I'm just entertaining the idea because it is somewhat of a possibility. But like I said, seeing how devoted they are to Al-Assad's cause, I do think they were defeated after taking so much devastation devastating losses. I really think this faction is pretty interesting due to how they were used and discarded by the Russians while being such a big threat that they could have taken over the whole Middle East if not for the US intervention. Because as I stated earlier on in the video, the reason why Zakayev even helps al-Assad with the coup and backs the Tigers is because he wants to distract the Western forces from the Russian Civil War. Plus, they have the same views. It's really all ironic in a way because they really sold out to the Russians if you really think about it by buying all their equipment, siding with them, doing business dealings with them. And yes, it allowed them to expand and take over other countries, but that's really the only non-ironic part about it. Because their whole goal was to be independent and uplift their nation as a whole, but the thing is, they're not independent, which is why they need Russian backing. And who would profit the most from any business dealings with those Russians? Yeah, the Tigers, not really the civilians of their nation. And that's why the coup in COD 4 really even takes place, because the Tigers think the Saudi president Yasser al-Fulani is selling out their nation by doing business dealings with the West, and because their nation isn't prospering. And that's why it's really ironic, because business dealings are being done that could better the whole country, but yet no prospering is occurring to the average day person, just the acting government. And yes, I'm aware they obviously view Russians differently than the West, but in reality, it's all the same, but different. Another thing, once the ultranationalists won the Russian Civil War, they don't even try to help rebuild the Tigers at all, which only further supports they were just used and discarded. And I know they could kind of be thinking it's a lost cause at this point, but it's really not if you think about it, because of all the accomplishments that the Tigers had before the US intervention. But I really do think it's not a lost cause, because you could rebuild them up and maybe they could get like they were before, and that means they would have kept expanding and taking over other countries and starting other wars, which means more business dealings and just a more powerful ally. So yeah, definitely a huge missed opportunity on the Russians' part. Because in my deleted video where I talked about the comparison to al-Assad and the Tigers to Saddam Hussein and his army, I showed the cutscenes before the missions and exactly where all the battles were being taken place that were being shown to us, being Kuwait, Iraq, and Saudi. And judging by this picture right here, al-Assad was occupying way more territories than just Kuwait, Iraq, and Saudi. This is really crazy to see how much territory this guy has covered. Now that I've seen a picture that clearly indicates he's expanding outside of the Middle East, I'm gonna be honest, if the US did not step in and help, this guy would have been a huge problem. Wait a minute, this is D coming from post-editing, so I guess forget everything I said about why they could be in Afghanistan, because it's actually just explained by this picture. And yes, they do take some creative liberties with the map they show in COD 4, but I'm pretty sure they meant for that spot to be Afghanistan. It does look like it could be Pakistan, or it is Pakistan, but I don't think it's meant to be Pakistan. I'm pretty sure it's meant to be Afghanistan. Definitely a huge missed opportunity with this faction and their leader, because they could have done way more with them, honestly. They accomplished way too much just to be forgotten. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about that other stuff because I just feel like it's really interesting and I've seen no one else talk about it, so why not talk about it? But yeah, that's really what I think happened to them, and I feel like they were really just a missed opportunity, and it just makes the most sense to me. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section, or let me know what you think could have happened or something I could have added, and thank you so much for watching.